Hello guys, how are you doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic day. I've got a question for you. Is it possible for an activity to be critical and not be on the critical part? I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. 1, 2, 3, go. So the answer is yes. All right. So let's dive in, and I will show you the scenario. So as you can see on my screen, I've got these few activities. Okay, and by now you know that if there's any activity in your Gantt area that's showing red, that means the activity is critical. And if it is showing green, it's a non-critical activity. That means it has some float. All right. So you can see this utility connection is not critical. System integration is not critical. The roof structure is not critical. Yeah. But every other activity in this program is showing as critical. But if you look at this activity, you will see that this activity has got a free float value, and yet it is critical. Okay. So let's define those terminologies one more time. Free float is the duration of time you can delay an activity without delaying the success of the next activity. So here now it's saying that I can delay the next activity by 5 days, okay, without affecting the project. That means it should not be critical. Yeah. Total float is the duration of time you can delay an activity without delaying the project end date. So free float, next activity, total float, project end date. And the critical part is the longest part in your program or the shortest duration you can complete your project. Any delay on any activity on the critical part will delay the project end date, which means an activity on the critical part will have a total float that is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so that is why this activity is red, because here now we are saying the total float value is -3. So if it's showing -3, that means that activity is critical in its own right, not in the overarching scheme of things. Okay. So the reason why this is showing as critical is because we have a constraint on this activity. So I'm saying this activity, MEP design finalization, should be completed on or before the 9th of July. But as you can see here, the program is showing that I'll be completing it on the 11th of July. So that's 3 days difference. That's why you have this -3 days. Okay. But you know that if this activity is delayed, it will delay the next activity, but you still have 5 days between this activity and the next activity. So ultimately it's not delaying the project end date. So it's not a true critical path activity. Okay, it's critical on its own right, but it's not a true critical path activity. Let's find out. So I can bring 2 columns in here. So I can bring my critical column, okay, critical column, and also the longest part column. So don't forget, critical part is the longest part in the program, okay, the longest part or the shortest duration you can complete your project, and any delay on any activity on critical part will delay the project end date. So if you look at this activity now, it's critical, but it is not on the longest part. So here you need to decide whether you want to display your longest part or your critical part. If, for example, the driver of this activity, producer of this activity, let's say this activity now, as you can see, there's a link between this and the activity. Let's say the duration of this one is 1 day, yeah, and you schedule your program. You will see that this activity is no longer critical because we are finishing on or before that 9th of July. Okay, so I have 1 day of float in there. All right, and if you look at the critical part column and also the longest part, you will see that it's identical. It is not critical and it's not on the longest part. All right, but if you go back in here and change this duration back to 5 days and you schedule your program, you will see that it's critical, but it's not on the longest part. So if you want to create a filter for your critical activity, it will show up. So if I go to my filter now and I go to critical and I click on apply and I click on OK, you see that it's part of the critical activities, but we know that it's not a true critical activity. So if you want to display your critical activity, what you need to do, instead of selecting critical part in this scenario, you want to select the longest part and click on apply and click on OK. Then you see it's no longer there. Okay, another way to do it is go back and apply your filter again, but now you schedule your program and go to your options, and instead of selecting this total float less than or equal to 0, because that's what is happening, that's why it is red, because it has a total float that is less than 0. It's minus 3. So that is why it's showing as part of the critical activity. But if you define your critical path as the longest part and you say yes and you schedule, you will now see that it's no longer on the critical path. So this longest part option in your scheduling option is quite good, especially when you have a project that has different calendars. Because if you have a 24 hours calendar linking to an 8 hours calendar, it depends on when that 24 hours calendar is finishing. Your program might show that you have a float if you use the first option, but if you use your longest part, then that will actually show as critical. Okay, if you have any question, please drop it in the comment section below and I'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible. I hope now, if they ask you a question in an interview to say, is it possible for an activity to be critical and not on the critical part, I think you know the answer to it. I've got another video on my YouTube channel that explained all this in detail. And then, if you have any question, don't forget, drop it in the comment section below. Don't forget to click on the like button and the bell button so that you get notified anytime we upload a new video. All right, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.